Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm good. Good. Looking forward to the show here.
Got
some good topics, some exciting news.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. A lot of coach breaking news. We're going to get into that as well as a few of the best games around. What a game. What a weekend, I would say. A lot of great playoff games. A lot of the winners won, or rather, a lot of the home teams won. The favorites won. Except Commanders got that pick right. All the other ones, besides the Rams, I didn't get any right. It was a very, very rough weekend for my picks, but we got a lot to talk about. So let's jump right into the first part of the breaking news, which broke yesterday, which was that Mike McCarthy is officially out as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys after only 5 seasons, despite leading the team to 3 consecutive 12-5 records, 12-5 seasons, and a 49-35 overall record. Postseason struggles, and this year's 7-10 finish was too much for Jerry Jones to hold on to. Mike McCarthy, his 1-3 playoff record with the Cowboys, obviously fell short of Jerry Jones's Super Bowl expectations, and now they're back to square one on picking a head coach, and some would say they're a little bit late to the party with a bunch of the top candidates already been interviewed by other teams. The Cowboys are late to the party. So my question for you is, are you surprised that Jerry Jones would pull the plug with Mike McCarthy?
A little bit, because it sounded like they were going to get together and do a new deal. That's what we thought, and apparently they tried. The reports that came out said that they broke up over not the length of the contract, and that's not what Jones said most recently. He said he praised the job McCarthy did, said he has great respect for him, but that a joint review led to the realization that it was time to move on. The joint review included a review of all aspects of the past season, the players and the staff, and the road forward for the team. Based on the review, they mutually agreed to head in different directions. It was not the length of the contract as previously believed, but McCarthy has not commented. And so, he was 45-35 in 5 years with the Cowboys. He went to the playoffs in 21, 22, and 23, but won just one playoff game. He finished 7-10 this year. Why there was the delay for weeks, if not months, in making this change, if that's what was going to happen? That's a time when top candidates either come off the market or they're down the road with their interviews. I don't know what's going on there. I don't think that the original story, I think, is the right one. I think that they really were debating a contract, and they couldn't, and Jones didn't have the confidence in McCarthy to give him the long enough contract that he wanted. So McCarthy said, I'm out of here. And then he comes out and said, oh, no, it's based on this review we did, but we haven't heard anything from McCarthy. So it's kind of odd, but it's kind of in line with the way Jerry Jones has been doing business the last few years. He's always late to the party. It's kind of a weird situation. Doesn't seem like it's well thought out. And these are the kinds of things that happens. It's got to be very upsetting to the Cowboys fans.
Well, I would say that they're fed up with postseason mediocrity. And I'm going to get into, I don't think it's a hot take anymore, but a lot of these big-time, all-time coaches that we think are very, very good, we're seeing their ways and their methodologies sort of be fizzled out, and I think that's the same thing with Mike McCarthy. He's won one Super Bowl already, and he came in, won 3 straight 12-5 seasons. It was beautiful to look at, and then when it came to the postseason, they fell apart like they normally do. I think Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick saw that up front, except Mike Tomlin's able to get to the playoffs. Belichick wasn't able to get to the playoffs except 1 year with Mac Jones. But I think when it comes to Mike McCarthy, yeah, you were going to pull the plug anyway. You didn't extend him in this past year's offseason. You didn't make any moves to help him out in this offseason. And now you're debating over the length of the contract. My guess would be is that Mike McCarthy wanted a long-term extension, probably 3, 4, 5 years, and Jerry Jones wouldn't have given to him. My guess, it would have been another 1-year deal. And now, what does Mike McCarthy do instantaneously? He already has an interview set up tomorrow with the Chicago Bears.
Oh.
And I think that's interesting. But when it comes to the Cowboys' job, and this is where I want to pivot to it, I think it was the right decision for Jerry Jones to let Mike McCarthy go. Now, whether it was on good terms or not, I actually believe it wasn't. I feel Mike McCarthy, and we heard reports this past offseason when they refused to give him an extension, that Mike McCarthy was a little bit slighted. He felt slighted about that. But when it comes to how the Cowboys move forward, I agree with Troy Aikman's assessment. This is not a coveted job because you have a meddling owner who cares a lot about himself and not about a lot of his team. He overpays guys, so he sets the team up for negative emotions entering the season. We saw that with CeeDee Lamb. We saw that with Dak Prescott. We see that with a bunch of offensive pieces. Now Micah Parsons needs to get paid. Question is, when are they going to pay him? My guess, it'll be a nice, long, dragged-out process like they normally do. But you have a meddling owner. You have a quarterback that is relatively okay but not great. He's getting paid A++ money when he's a B to B- quarterback at his very best. You have a running game that was near dead last in the NFL. You have an offensive line that's aging and not very good. And your defense sometimes comes up very small like we saw through about 2/3 of this season. So why would the Cowboys' job be a good job to look at, especially for some newcomers like we're seeing on the scene now? Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, they're on the scene. Kellen Moore is a name that keeps popping up because of his history as the OC of the Dallas Cowboys a few years ago. So in my opinion for this, when it comes to the Cowboys' job, it's not a good job to look at besides popularity. It's arguably the biggest, it's probably because they're called America's team, the biggest market in the NFL. But outside of that, your quarterback's getting paid way too much. Your wide receiver's getting paid a lot of money. I think he deserves it, but it could have been less money. Your cap space right now, I think, is 27th in the league going into next year. And for a first-time head coach where the culture and the morale around the team is relatively low, and you're expected Super Bowl when your team constantly underperforms in the playoffs, I think that just sets up any head coach, any new head coach especially, for failure because they don't have that experience. So now the question is, what's that next step? Because Mike Vrabel, who in my opinion could have been a beautiful culture piece for a bunch of teams, and every time we talk about, what coach fits in there, I kept going to Mike Vrabel for the Bears job, Raiders job, Patriots, all of that, because they need someone to build a very, very good culture, and that's what Mike Vrabel would have done. I think that if Ben Johnson goes here, could he make Dak Prescott a better quarterback? Well, that's what he'll be there to do. But the defense may suffer.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer says he wants to stay, but after this performance, I'm looking at, why?
Why? He didn't do a very good
Rex
job.
Ryan's still out there. Reportedly, the Jets don't want him anymore as the head coach.
Yeah.
So could he get another round 2 opportunity instead of being the DC? He gets interviewed for the head coach.
The head coach is there to build the culture.
Correct.
Right. I think bringing in someone like Ben Johnson, he's there to build the offense. I don't see that he's got the, maybe, you have to start your head coaching job somewhere. Everybody's
Correct.
not a head, they don't start out as head coaches. They have to learn the job. So maybe he's somebody that can build a culture, but you're right. Mike Vrabel was out there. He's somebody that really knows how to build a culture, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. I just say about Jerry Jones, he's always been slow on the draw. In the past 29-year period since the last Super Bowl win, he's clung too long to coaches. Same deal with quarterbacks, hung on to him too long. The GM, too long himself, right? He should have fired himself, and he said that too. He said, if I had a GM that had my record, I probably would have fired him. It's not a very funny joke to the Cowboys fans because they would probably agree.
They've been begging for that.
Yeah. Out of some, this is all out of some combination of loyalty, misplaced optimism, or ego. I don't know what it is. The lousy seasons keep piling up in Dallas, and there's little change. This was to be his final coaching hire, I think, or close to it, and he has to get it right. That other aggressively pounce on candidates. He sat back and evaluated the season and talked to contract length. So, he's behind the curve again. He says that he makes all the personnel decisions, and he said he would have fired someone with his record. It's a funny joke unless you're a Cowboys fan. Jones will likely pick a coach who has a winning track record in the NFL, somebody he knows well, and has put up with the distractions of being a Cowboys coach. That the best fit for that would be Mike McCarthy, and you just let him go.
I agree, but if we're talking about head coaches that are available or could be available, based on that assessment, which I completely agree with, the only one that you could possibly look at, because all the top ones are first-year head coaches most likely, is Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And you said that, early this offseason, where we said after the Patriots completely crumbled, you thought, okay, well, Belichick to the Cowboys. That was your big thing. And I think based on the reporting that's out there, if Jerry Jones made this move when everybody's making the move, that Black Monday, right after the season ends on Sunday, we got a bunch of the firings. I think if Jerry Jones did that, I know Belichick signed a couple weeks ago, I think at this point it's probably over a month ago, that Belichick would have been interested in joining the Cowboys. My only concern is, since when will Belichick give up his GM rights and his control over an organization like on the Patriots with Jerry Jones? I don't see Jerry Jones moving the needle too much in favor of other coaches.
No, maybe not.
For power.
I think that it's been leaked that Belichick would have had interest if he'd known the job was going to be available. But Belichick has in his contract with North Carolina that $10 million buyout.
Right.
So Jerry Jones has
post June 1 though, it would be a $1 million.
$1 million,
buyout.
but Jerry Jones has $17 billion. Okay.
Right.
So I think a $10 million buyout is not something that's going to break the bank for him. But he won't do it. He doesn't like buyouts. He doesn't like to do that. But hey, if he wants Bill Belichick, $10 million buyout, work with him a little bit on picking the players. You probably could wind up with him. He might agree to leave North Carolina. They get $10 million. Maybe they make his son the coach. I don't know.
Well, and what I find interesting is that now we heard the name, and Adam Schefter reported yesterday that the Cowboys and Deion Sanders spoke. I think it would be a similar situation with Deion Sanders, because he would instantaneously, if he becomes the head coach of the Cowboys, he becomes a bigger personality than Jerry Jones is. And I think based on what Deion Sanders has said, he would force the Cowboys to probably draft Shedeur Sanders, or at least try to get Shedeur Sanders in any way possible. I think they would also have him draft Shiloh Sanders, because he said he wants to coach his sons, being plural, which means Shedeur and Shiloh would probably both. He wants whatever team that drafts him to draft both. And I think, will Jerry Jones give up his sort of spotlight for Deion Sanders?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
And I think the worst one, which apparently is being reported, is that because of Jerry Jones' comment back in November of this past year, where he said Jason Witten would be a top coach in the NFL, he said that maybe Jason Witten gets a nod at trying to be the head coach of the Cowboys. No, he's a high school coach, and yes, in 4 seasons he's gone 38-11.
High school,
but he's a high school coach. He was a tight end for the Cowboys. But that doesn't, at least go to college. I don't care if it's a lesser tier college.
Or
but
be an assistant in the NFL for a while.
Yeah, something like that. But I do think that it is setting up for a lot of these teams, a lot of these franchises that have some sort of history. I think it could be a one-and-done head coach situation. I think no matter what head coach goes, unless you are one of the Ben Johnsons of the world. If you're a Kellen Moore, I think you could be one and done. I think if you're an Aaron Glenn, you could be a one and done. I think if Ben Johnson at least holds some true credibility, because we've seen back-to-back great performances of the Detroit Lions offense, and this is really the only year of a really, really good Detroit defense.
I think Kellen Moore has a shot because he's a buddy of Dak Prescott's.
Right.
And he would be somebody that flies under the radar screen a little bit for Jerry Jones. He wouldn't, be outshining him at all in any way in terms of personality or, any kind of being out there, being a star or anything. So he may get a shot. I think he has a shot.
I think the best fit, though, is Bill Belichick.
I do, too.
The best fit would be Bill Belichick because that defense needs a culture change.
He's friends with Jerry Jones. They're family friends. Known each other for many years. He knows Jerry Jones knows Bill Belichick's success in the NFL. So I don't know what Jerry Jones was thinking about. He could have made this move much earlier on. He could have hinted to Belichick, just wait till the end of the season. Don't make a deal. This is going to end. But I don't think he really knew what he was doing. He always
waits way too long, and he
winds
suffers
up being
reactive
to it. I mean, he makes a mistake, and then he has to react.
Right.
So.
Which he likes doing, because why are you coming out with this now? Why are you in the spotlight now trying to say everything? Yes, you had 4 days to do it. but coming out and saying like, oh, well, no, it's actually this.
We haven't heard from Mike McCarthy.
We're not probably going to hear.
We're probably never going to hear from him.
Mike McCarthy's going to do the politically correct thing and say, I love my time in Dallas. It was great being there, but now it's time to look forward and move on.
He's going to be
the
Bears' next coach.
Probably, I think there's a decent shot at it. Yeah. I think there's a decent shot at it. But let's get into another coaching move. This time it's not a firing, it's a hiring, which is what I predicted a couple weeks ago when we talked about Jerod Mayo potentially moving off and then subsequently being moved off of. And this time it's Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel has become the next head coach of the New England Patriots. He was a former linebacker who helped the team win 3 Super Bowls during his playing career. Mike Vrabel, as a head coach, though, led the Titans to a AFC Championship appearance in 2019 and now is now become the head coach of a Patriots team that just put up a 4-13 season. And this is a big-time rebuild for the Patriots, one that they haven't had in 20 years. They're currently in the midst of a pretty rough rebuild, but they have some of the key pieces in play, which is, I would say, a stable defense and a very young, just was a rookie quarterback in Jerod Mayo. So there's some pieces that are very maybe eye-opening and helpful for Mike Vrabel, but here's my question to you. Do you think that it's enough? Do you think Mike Vrabel could help the Patriots turn around their season for next year and maybe help them make a playoff appearance next year?
Playoffs, I'm not so sure, but I think they will turn things around. I do think Jerod Mayo was too soon for him to be a head coach. We talked about this last week, and the fact that he was too easy on the players. He pointed fingers. He didn't take responsibility. He really wasn't. It doesn't seem like he was ready for the job. Once he was fired, and it was once it was leaked that Mike Vrabel leaked that he'd like to be the Patriots head coach. Suddenly, Mayo was fired, and almost instantly, Vrabel was hired by the Patriots. It was widely expected. I think he's 54-45 in 6 seasons when he was with the Titans, 2-3 in the playoffs. He played for the Patriots 2001 to 2008, winning 3 Super Bowls. He's the fourth head coach that Kraft has hired since purchasing the team back in 1994. That's 30 years ago. As an owner, I think he's the right hire for many reasons. He's proven that he can build a winning culture, and I think that's the main thing the Patriots need. He'll bring order and structure. His mastery of game management, something that Jerod Mayo obviously didn't have. Commanding leader. He's a true leader. He unify all aspects of their football operation. Belichick said way back that he was one of the smartest players he ever coached. He's a Patriots Hall of Famer who spoke glowingly about the franchise at his induction. So I think everything lines up. The stars line up nicely for this. The fact that Vrabel remained available in 2025 and was interviewing with the Jets added a layer of context to this decision, I think. I don't think that Kraft wanted the Jets to wind up with Mike Vrabel.
Well, I think when we talked about we debated whether or not Jerod Mayo would be fired a couple weeks ago, and I said that it wouldn't surprise me because we did hear Mike Vrabel's name be tossed around, and I think that originally, and that's what some of the reporting is that Robert Kraft, and I think everybody was shocked the Titans fired him a couple years ago, and that really kind of had to speed things up. Or rather, it allowed Robert Kraft to kind of get screwed over because he set up this beautiful plan for Jerod Mayo to be the next head coach because nobody expected Mike Vrabel to be fired at the time. And then Vrabel gets fired, and it's like, well, we have this structure in play. It's either I go against this big structure and do it honestly a terrible thing to Jerod Mayo and say, well, hold on, we gave you this big piece. Now you're assistant head coach, right behind Belichick. We set this up so you be the next head coach. But now Mike Vrabel's available, we're going to take him. It would be in bad faith. It wouldn't be a good look for Robert Kraft. So this was kind of a slightly better way, firing him after 1 year where you completely fell apart and there was no accountability being held whatsoever. Mike Vrabel came in and instantly said, quote, removing entitlement from our football team. We're going to earn the right to be here every single day. I'm sure that makes some Patriots players, depending on who they are, maybe a little bit nervous because they may feel entitled to be there because of the historic culture and they got picked relatively high. Like, for instance, I don't think Jalen Polk will be anywhere close to the starting lineup because he can't catch footballs. I think there are honestly several receivers that are better available in free agency and currently on the Patriots roster than Jalen Polk, and he was their second-round pick. I think what's also big is that Mike Vrabel brought in the former Titans executive for the Patriots. The Giants allowed him to be hired by the Patriots, and it looks like he's going to be advisor to Elliot Wolf. So the Patriots are making moves. They need to make moves. 4-13. You have no accountability. You structured the beginning of the season so poorly, with Jerod Mayo saying that Brissett got outplayed by Drake May, yet you have Brissett out there starting week 1 and starting through week 6 and putting up a 1-5 record. And then you put in Drake May out there, and everybody's like, whoa, no, Drake May's pretty good. Well, why didn't we start this? Like, everybody thought after the first, rough patches in training camp where he started to actually excel, and we're like, okay, well, we saw the preseason. Brissett couldn't complete a single pass. Drake May actually showed some spark. So why isn't he starting? And then the account, and then it got so bad, Patriots players were calling out fans, and it was just a whole bad system at the very end, and Robert Kraft got fed up, rightfully so, and decided to fire him. I think this is a great move. Mike Vrabel is a culture builder, like I said in the last topic. I think that he would have been a perfect candidate for any team that desperately needs a culture shift. So that would be the Cowboys, that would be the Bears, that would be the Raiders, and I think that's a perfect place for him on the Patriots. He has culture there. He won 3 Super Bowls with him. So
he's in the Ring of Honor. He's a Patriots player in their Hall of Fame. So I think that's important. It'd be interesting to see the impact on Drake May. What's Vrabel's vision for the offense?
I would fire Alex Van Pelt.
And who will be the offensive coordinator? I think they'll fire.
That's
Van
a
Pelt,
that's a great question.
There will be a new system for sure, and new position coaches. I would say Van Pelt and T.C. McCartney received praise for helping to develop Drake May. They helped with his footwork, and they helped him step into the starting job, and he did well. He did reasonably
hold
well.
on. We got news. Hold up. Sorry, I didn't see this. Alex Van Pelt was fired as OC for the Patriots.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not surprising.
9 days ago.
But let's remember what happened to our good friend Mac Jones when he lost
Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniel as his OC. He regressed and he wound up out of the Patriots organization and playing with the Jaguars this year. So I don't know. That's a little something we'll have to watch. They're going to have to definitely make sure that May is brought along right, and that whatever offense they put in place. I don't know how much more complicated it will be than what the Patriots had, what it will be, but he's going to have to be comfortable in it somehow. And the Patriots, I think, should also go out and hire a general manager that shares Vrabel's vision to ensure some alignment there. The Patriots have never had a GM in Kraft's ownership, preferring an executive VP of player personnel alongside the head coach. And in that case, it was Bill Belichick was the head coach, and he made all the decisions there. So that would be new for them. No one around the league is surprised. As I mentioned, Vrabel interviewed in person, and has a prior relationship with the Patriots as a player, and now as a Hall of Famer, and schmoozed the Kraft. And when in his acceptance speech, he played his moves very adeptly. The question now is, what will the Patriots do with the 4th pick?
When it came to the number 1 overall pick, I said trade back, gain more assets, because they don't need a quarterback. They don't need, I would say, pick a wide receiver, but I don't think any wide receiver is worthy of being the number 1 overall pick in this draft. So number 1 pick normally goes to quarterbacks. They need a lot. They need offensive line. I still think they need another running back. They need a lot. They need interior defenders. There was no pressure on any quarterback really at all. They were 22nd in scoring defense. They were 30th in points scored this season. So the fact that, unless you're a diehard Patriots fan, you don't know 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen, that should bring up big red flags saying, oh, no, we need help. We desperately need help out there. And I think David Andrews, he's old. He just got hurt. He's regressed. My guess is we'll hear in a couple months that he's probably going to step away from the game, just because there's no hope for long-term success currently, because we haven't seen this new rendition of Mike Vrabel's system. We don't know what it looks like yet. And I think the fact that there's a question there, I don't think David Andrews, what he's been through over the past 3-4 seasons now, it's a bit rough for a guy like him. Mm-hmm. So I would say they need a brand new offensive line. So that's center, left guard, right guard, and then depending on where you put Michael Wenu, right guard or left guard, you need a left guard, left tackle, center. And depending on when you put Michael Wenu at right guard or right tackle, you need to get the other of those because he is clearly their best offensive lineman. Cole Strange ain't great. I don't think you're going to bring back DeMontre Jacobs. A core of 4 tapped out after one game. So there's a lot of issues with the Patriots, but they still have their quarterback. They have okay weapons. I think Demario Douglas is a perfectly fine weapon, and then Kayshon Boutte showed up big time this year. I think Kendrick Bourne's also a very nice piece, but you need that X factor. Mm-hmm. And I think the first move I would make in this draft, I don't know if it's at 4 or you could trade back a couple picks to gain more draft capital, I would draft an offensive lineman instantly. You got to go blindside left tackle for Drake May. You got to help him out.
I don't disagree with you, but I have a little different take.
Sure.
I think given that they only won 4 games, they lost 13 games, they have the 4th pick. Unfortunately, they could have had number 1 if they'd lost that game, the last game of the season. Why not lose it? They wound up winning it. Everyone was all excited. Then Mayo instantly fired. I'd say the best player available is probably the best choice here. I think the first 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks. I don't know what the 3rd pick will be, but Abdul Carter is out there from Penn State. He's a beast. He's a defensive player, but they've got holes all over the roster. So drafting someone to go with Keon White might make a lot of sense. They have $130 million under the cap, so they can go out and buy an offensive line, and I think that's what they should do.
That's fair.
So, I say go with the best player in the draft. If Abdul Carter is there, you might want to go for him because that guy looks like he's going to be a game changer.
My only thing isn't that what they've been doing, even under Belichick, and then they finally changed it up under Jerod Mayo?
Well, they just hired another defensive coach. They just hired another defensive coach, a linebackers coach. That's what Mayo was.
Right, but I think there's a slight difference. Vrabel has shown success with lesser tier talent. We're not looking at the Tennessee Titans and say they're one of the best teams in NFL history, or even one of the best teams in recent history. But yet they made an AFC championship,
and
they were also the number 1 seed
with Tannehill as their quarterback.
Correct, and they also were the number 1 seed in the AFC with Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all of them. Joe Burrow as well, although that might have been Burrow's first legitimate year because of the injury, but. The fact that he was able to do that with lesser talent, I think that just shows that, he is a more defensive-minded head coach, but he's able to pick up the pieces, and I think a big factor in that is getting the right OC. Because Arthur Smith was a massive part in why some of those systems worked the way that they did. And I think that you desperately need an OC, because if you're going to be a walk-around guy like Dan Campbell, you got to have your offensive and defensive coordinators that are near the top tier in talent, because then you could just be the culture guy. Then you don't need to dabble in the defense or in the offense or whatever the case may be. You could just be that guy to basically be a Nick Sirianni. You could be a better version of Nick Sirianni. Dan Campbell's a walk-around guy. Nick Sirianni's a walk-around guy. So you can, I think Mike Tomlin should be a walk-around guy instead of dabbling, because at this point in time, every single season it seems, the defense gets tired out, the offense is stalled, everything like that. So you got to get your coordinators right. I don't know if DeMarcus Covington is the right answer at DC. Could be. I'm not sure. The defense did regress pretty massively from 7th to 22nd.
They're going to clean house, I think. I mean, the defense regressed.
Big time.
And Vrabel is a defensive guy, so he's going to want his own guy in there.
I wouldn't disagree with that. But it's all about what Mike Vrabel does moving forward. But the expectation is you're going to need to play hard. Mike Vrabel will come at you if you slip up, and I think that the expectation should be, like I said last year, just based on the negative way that Belichick went out, I thought the Patriots win 6 games this season. I'm going to say I expect them to win. They have a significantly easier schedule this season. I'm going 7-8 wins. I think that the AFC will fight each other off pretty nicely. I think the Dolphins will be in the mix, so they might be able to take out some of these other teams like the Broncos potentially, or the Chargers maybe, to make them lose a few more games. I say late in the season, the Patriots have an opportunity to sneak into the 7th seed.
Wow.
7-8 wins.
Wow.
I believe in Mike Vrabel. I think he could turn it around.
I believe in Mike Vrabel too, and I think that while he is tough on the players, he is a player's coach.
That's true.
And walking that fine line is something he's able to do, and he's done it very well. So I was very surprised the Titans fired him.
Everybody was, yeah.
I mean, look what they've gotten, the Titans. I mean, they're horrible, right? They should have hung on to him. I think it was a huge mistake. And why somebody didn't pick him up last year was a surprise to me as well. So having him out there, getting accepted into the Patriots Hall of Fame this summer and or this fall, I can't remember. I guess it was
15 months ago.
Yeah, okay. And then, hinting that he wanted to be the coach. Here he is. We'll see what happens next.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a very quick break, but coming up, the Los Angeles Rams took the Vikings to the cleaners and spit them out the back door. So we're going to talk about that game and Sam Darnold's potential future with the Vikings, as well as the Houston Texans shocked, as would say a lot of people, with their upset over the Los Angeles Chargers. And finally, oh boy, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in trouble. What should the Steelers do moving forward, as well as are the Ravens primed for a legitimate Super Bowl run? We'll talk about all of that right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on this Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show, which is the Los Angeles Rams dominated the Minnesota Vikings 27-9 in the NFC wildcard game, tying an NFL playoff record with 9 sacks. Sam Darnold was getting killed behind the offensive line. Jerod Verse, rookie linebacker Jerod Verse, got a fumble return touchdown. He's probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And the Rams defense allowed Sam Darnold to probably go back to his Jets time and start seeing ghosts again. It was a very, very ugly game for Sam Darnold. But Stafford, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. He went 9 for 9 on that first drive. His first 10 plays, 9 for 9 and a touchdown. It was a thing of beauty. But my question to you is, what was your overall reaction to last night's game between the Vikings and the Rams?
My takeaway from this game, Rams' motivation to play for the people of Los Angeles, devastated by wildfires, results in an overwhelming victory in a game moved to Arizona because of these wildfires. I think it's amazing. I give the Rams owner a lot of credit in this victory. He spent whatever it took to make sure his players felt safe and their families felt safe. They have over 400 people that they from the team and players' families and even some dogs and cats they brought to Arizona so that they could feel safe going into the game. I thought that was big. And I think that the outcome of the game here, you look at the end of the first half, the score, at the end of the first half, the score was 24-3. Looked like the game's out of reach, right? But with 4:42 left in the second quarter, the score was 10-3. It was a game. It was a real game. And then Darnold, standing there way too long, as he's done in the past, gets hit, fumbles the ball. Verse picks it up, runs for a touchdown. Now it's 17-10. And then the Vikings get the ball back. They start driving. They get to the 50-yard line. It's 4th and 2 on the 50-yard line, and they go for it. I think that was a huge mistake, right? because he got sacked for a huge loss. They wound up having the ball on about the 30-yard line, and the Rams take it in with 15 seconds left, another TD, and it's 24-3, game over.
Yeah. No, this was an ugly game, and I thought to myself, I was with my friends, so we were all reacting to this game, and we all kind of agreed Sam Darnold was losing millions of dollars every time he took a drop back because his performance the past 2 weeks has been pitiful. It's not a $40 million quarterback. It's not a $41 million franchise tag worthy. He'd be lucky to even get the Baker Mayfield $33 million a year deal. And I think, before the Detroit Lions game, we're all looking like, okay, well, he just led him to a 14-win season, looking really good with this team. And then you actually brought up something that I think resonated in this game. The level of competition they played wasn't all that difficult. Because you look at some of the opponents that the Minnesota Vikings played, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, they won 14 games, but it was against the New York Jets. They beat the Houston Texans when they weren't very good. They beat up on the Colts, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Bears again, the Seahawks. The Seahawks was a good win. So I think Sam Darnold had a tremendous throw in that one. But you look at some of these teams and they're lackluster teams. And I think in the most embarrassing moment is you versus the Jaguars, who were at the time the worst passing defense in the NFL, and Sam Darnold puts up a big dud, and the only touchdown that came in that game was a Mac Jones QB scramble. You put up 12 points against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Sam Darnold, I don't know if the Vikings will bring him back, but I don't think he's worth the $41 million projected franchise tag. I don't think he's worth a $40 million long-term contract. I think he'd be very lucky to get a Baker Mayfield type deal. I think we're looking at a $30 million contract at the very most, and that's a very desperate team trying just for a bridge quarterback, or they think, because they're a bad team, that this will be their long-term answer, which is Sam Darnold. I give a lot of props to the Los Angeles Rams, though. They're peaking at the exact right time. They, after going, 1-4 to start the year, turned things around completely, got healthy, and now we're looking at a defense which a lot of people were questioning whether or not the loss of Aaron Donald to retirement will have a big impact on how the Rams, perform this season. And I said on the show, well, yeah, they're losing one guy, but they're going to go heavy defense in this draft, and they're going to draft a bunch of guys that will have a similar impact to Aaron Donald, just him as a solo individual, and that's kind of what they did this year. I mean, the Rams defense, while the numbers say that they aren't that great, that's because they were banged up so much this year. But when it mattered the most, I mean, we look at since week 15, 6 points allowed, 9 points allowed, 9 points allowed, 30 points against the Seahawks, but they were playing backups, 9 points allowed. I mean, the defense is putting up great numbers. The offense staggered a little bit towards the end of the year. But their defense, when fully healthy, looked really, really good. They even went toe-to-toe with the Buffalo Bills, and I know the score was only a 2-point game, but large parts of the game, I mean, the Bills couldn't stop them at all. So a huge props to Los Angeles Rams, and that's why on Friday's show, where we were talking about, what's a big upset here? I said, really, I'm only picking one upset or two upsets when I picked the Commanders and the Steelers to upset. And you kept reminding me, it's like, well, no, you picking the Rams to upset too. That's why I didn't think the Rams would be an upset. Because I thought the way Sam Darnold played and the way the Vikings have been playing as of late, I thought, well, they are very shaky against lackluster teams. Something there's a smoke screen behind the 14 wins there. And that turned out to be the case because, my God, like you said, this game was over basically at the first half. It became a relatively unwatchable game.
It all happened like in the span of those 4 minutes at the end of the second quarter. It was really something. This game to me was kind of weird. I expected, big performances out of Justin Jefferson, maybe Addison having a good game. Nakua, I figured he'd have a great game. Kopp, I figured those guys are big. Those are big time players. Those are star receivers. Those are all pro players, and they didn't do much. Nakua had 5 catches, 44 yards. Kopp only had 1 catch for 29 yards. It was a big play, but it was really Higbee. He was the guy he was 5 for 58. He had a TD. On the other side, Hawkinson was the big receiver for the Vikings. Jefferson had 5 for 58, and Addison only had 3 for 29. I mean, I was very surprised by that. The total yards in the game, reasonably close. Actually, the Vikings looks pretty good at 269, given they lost 82 yards in sacks. The total yards for the Rams, 292. Rushing, actually, the The Vikings outrushed the Rams 106-90. Time of possession, the Vikings had it 32 minutes and the Rams 27. The difference was the defense for the Rams with the 9 sacks and the turnovers and turning that one fumble into a touchdown. And the other side of the ball, the Vikings sacked Matthew Stafford only a couple of times. I'd say, the Rams defense coming up big with those 9 sacks. It tied a playoff record. A fumble return for a TD. McVay said, you talk about sports offering a platform for people to come together and offer a little temporary relief. I thought the way our team competed tonight was what that looked like. 45,000 Rams fans went to Arizona. O'Connell, he said, you have to play to a certain standard, and we didn't do that. That's for sure. I think he was talking to Darno when he said that. Stafford, he got lucky. The Rams got lucky there when that shuffle pass that he threw, originally called a fumble and was a touchdown for the Vikings.
Would have made it 10-10.
Turned out to be an incomplete pass, and that would have made it 10-10. Stafford, I think he was key here. The defense and Stafford. Stafford beat the blitz. They blitzed 70% of the time, the Vikings did, on his dropbacks. He was 14-18 for 178 yards, 2 TDs, and 144.7 passer rating. That is clutch.
Absolutely. And I think it's also interesting when you just look at how poorly Sam Darnold played. I don't know if it's seeing ghosts, but he was hesitating all the time. I think the Rams defense, I think that was the big X factor here. While I think Stafford coming out the gate and going on that massive drive to open up the game and ending it with a touchdown, that set the tone. But then the defense absolutely pummeling Sam Darnold time and time again. And Darnold actually, he keeps holding the ball way too long. And they said it throughout the entire broadcast. When he just needed to slide or step up or maybe just go a little bit to the right, he would look like he's going to scramble and take massive steps, overstep, too far left, too far right, step into pressure. When he only needed was do a little bit of a slide. And he instead generated pressure himself and put the ball in harm's way. And the fumble issues, the bad interception, it all came crumbling down. Millions of dollars were lost per dropback for Sam Darnold in this game. Yeah. And it honestly started a game ago when it came to the Detroit Lions, when that was a bad performance too, because he kept holding on to the ball, kept getting hit. The Detroit Lions defense, which suffered an insane amount of points scored on them the past few weeks and allowed the 49ers to drop. Even with Josh Dobbs making a couple of great plays against them, they allowed a bunch of points. And then all of a sudden, you essentially, virtually, put up no points. Like, it wasn't a game. It was 31-9. You scored 9 points back-to-back games. I mean, you essentially did nothing in back-to-back games, and you honestly got embarrassed in both those games. So the Vikings, to me, are they playoff frauds? Is Kevin O'Connell a bad coach? No, because he was able to create Sam Darnold into a 14-win quarterback in one singular season and did a tremendous job, a very long win streak, about midway through the year. So I don't think Kevin O'Connell's a bad coach. I just think that Sam Darnold, the question of whether or not he'll be the starting quarterback on this team, I think it kind of says that J.J. McCarthy will, or in your case, Daniel Jones, will be making that week one snap instead of Sam Darnold.
I think that the thought that you had in a couple of shows ago there that the Giants would trade for J.J. McCarthy, I thought that would be great for the Giants. I don't think it's going to happen now.
No, it's not going to happen.
And you know what? I'd say that Sam Darnold, we beat up on him here a little bit, but he never played in a really big game.
Correct.
Right? The first one was against the Lions. He didn't play well there, but the whole team didn't play well in that game either. And last night, he didn't play well again, but it's his first playoff game. So he'd never been in a playoff game before. I'm not totally writing him off. I think, maybe he gets another chance to gets in the playoffs. Maybe he learns a lot from these last 2 games and helps his career. He's still a young guy, and somebody's going to get him, and somebody's going to give him a chance to start. I mean, he did win 14 games this year. So, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't write him off totally.
I'm not writing him off. I'm just saying, like, for
I
me,
didn't say you were, but I'm just saying,
right.
I as a fan base or or as NFL fans have their own opinions about things, I don't think they should write him off.
Well, I think that if he came out and performed even acceptably, I think that nobody would be bashing him because he tried, and then the Rams were just a better team.
He got sacked 9 times.
Correct, but if you stand in the pocket for 3 seconds when you should have gotten the ball out at 2.5 seconds, well then, yeah, you got that half second, that's on you. And he was actually one of the higher quarterbacks with QB allowed pressure, so he was holding on the ball for too long in this game. But yeah, no, 9 sacks is difficult to come back from, and like you said, it tied a playoff record. But I think that it's the confidence you have after seeing these performances against the good teams. And by the way, their 4 losses this season are against the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. That's it. Because they got the 2 losses earlier in the season against, by the way, back-to-back Detroit, Minnesota. And then this go-around, back-to-back Detroit Detroit and Los Angeles. Back-to-back losses each time.
Yeah.
So to play those 2 teams twice back-to-back, and then have that be your only loss of the season, it's rough.
I think Rams-Eagles is going to be very hard to pick.
I agree with you.
A lot of thought
I
on
agree
that
with you.
one. It's going to be hard to pick. The Rams are on a mission. I mean,
Especially after Detroit, Dan Campbell goes to what Kevin O'Connell says, we'll see you in 2 weeks. I think that added to the Rams' motivation, saying, well, hell you mean you're going to see them? Yeah. We're in their way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this wildfire thing and playing for the residents of Los Angeles and all the people that have suffered losing their homes, and some of the players too, their homes are at risk as well. So I think this has been a rallying cry for the Rams. And you remember when the Red Sox, when they had the terror attack in Boston at the Marathon, that year they won the World Series. They rallied around that issue and that bad thing that happened to the people of Boston, and they won the World Series. I could see the Rams making a surprise win here against Philadelphia, but that's a topic for Friday.
And that's why I said a couple weeks ago that nobody would want to play the Los Angeles Rams. Nobody. I don't care what the record was at the time. I think they were still hovering around 500. I said, if this team makes the playoffs, they will crush playoff dreams, Super Bowl dreams for any team that plays them. Because if the fact that they made the playoffs after being down, 1-4 to start the year, yeah, get out of their way because they're going to be steamrolling right through you. And the way that Matt Stafford
looks good, man.
Right, it kind of looks like
a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. First year with the Rams too, he won that Super Bowl. But speaking about, maybe lackluster performances, my God, what happened over in Houston? The Los Angeles Chargers got upset by the Houston Texans 32-12 in the AFC wildcard round. C.J. Stroud threw for 282 yards and a touchdown, and Joe Mixon had 119 all-purpose yards and a score as well. The Texans defense intercepted Herbert 4 times and also sacked him 4 times, and also one of those interceptions was a pick 6. And with this win, Houston advances to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. My question to you is, how shocking was this win from the Houston Texans?
I picked the Chargers. I thought that they were going to win, and I was shocked that they lost, particularly when they started out reasonably well. Too bad they couldn't have got touchdowns on those first couple of drives, but they did get field goals, and they were up 6-0. And at the end of the second half, it was 10-6 in favor of Houston. So it was a game. But the Texans' defense, they would just my takeaway from this game is the defense carried the day. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They only gave up 50 yards rushing. They forced 4 interceptions after Herbert only threw 3 all year. So to me, that was the big difference in this game. You look at the rushing for the Chargers. Dobbins 9 carries, 26 yards. Edwards 7 for 22 yards. And the receiving, aside from McCarthy, who is a star, that's for sure. Disley 2 for 16. Fisk 1 for 15. Clark 1 for 10. Davis 1 for 4. And Quentin Johnson, no receptions, none, nothing. Why do they? I'd say they're going to think hard about whether they want to hang on to that guy. When you throw it to him, he can't hang on to it anyway. And he didn't get a reception in this game, in a playoff game. And he was a first-round pick. So I think the Chargers are exposed that they don't have offensive weapons. They don't have the talent on offense to compete in a playoff game. And that's shown here. All they had was McConkey and Herbert. And Herbert was constantly harassed. He threw the 4 interceptions. He only had 3 all year. That was the difference in the game. The Texans defense had 4 sacks too. They pressured him on 50% of his dropbacks, forcing him to go 3 of 14 for 112 yards and 1 TD and 2 interceptions in that period. He couldn't handle the pressure, and the Texans applied it on almost every play.
Well, I think, and I want to preface this before I jump into it, and I have the data to back me up, and nobody believes me. And I said this on the show. I thought Justin Herbert should be picked over Tua Tagovailoa in that year's draft, and I still believe that. But as it currently stands, Herbert goes from a B+ quarterback to a B- C+ quarterback. This was his moment to shine. He was favored on the road in Houston to a Houston team that was reeling and had one good game in a matter of, 6-7 games. Everybody was saying, what's wrong with the Houston Texans? The offensive line was banged up. Basically the smithereens. Joe Mixon was a hit or miss in some of these games, and C.J. Stroud, who had turnover issues and wasn't playing very well. So the Chargers were lining up to do something tremendous, which is finally get a playoff win, which they haven't done since 2018. And Jim Harbaugh, it would have just added to his reputation of he wins everywhere he goes. Now, I don't know if you go up against, the Kansas City Chiefs or whatnot and somehow, pull off the upset there. But at least winning that first playoff game would do something that Justin Herbert hasn't done, and that's win a playoff game. Because last time we saw him in the playoffs, him and his team choked away a 27-0 lead. But so for me, a lot of this falls on Justin Herbert because he put the ball in harm's way. A couple of them were drops, I understand. But he just didn't play well. I don't think anyone could really say that he played adequately or he played good enough. He just didn't play well. And I actually put a decent amount of the blame, and I really haven't seen anybody talk about this. But for me, I put a lot of the blame on offensive coordinator Greg Roman. And I think we could look at some of the history of it and look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson wasn't a great developed passer during Greg Roman's time with the Baltimore Ravens. And then we see as soon as Todd Monken gets in there last year, we see that Lamar Jackson is a pretty decent thrower, and working with Todd Monken, working on his passing, it really helped Lamar Jackson turn into the quarterback that he turned into this year, which is have over 4,000 passing yards. So I think Greg Roman deserves a lot of the blame. And over the course of Greg Roman's offensive coordinator coaching career, any quarterback has suffered massively in the numbers department. And we look at Justin Herbert and we, credited the efficiency, the 23 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But what happens when Greg Roman's system, which is heavily focused on running the football, what if that fails? Because he's worked with Colin Kaepernick, he's worked with LaShawn McCoy, he worked with Lamar Jackson, all teams that had great running games. And the Los Angeles Chargers had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, 2 running backs that had injury histories, and an offensive line that was good, relatively good, but also had some issues with Justin Herbert not performing very well. So these are the passing offensive ranks and the records to go. I'll bring up the graphic, but these are the passing offensive ranks for the teams that Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator to. Oh, they're nearly bottom 5 every single year. With a few of these years, one of them being last, 3 times they were 30th in the league, 28th a few times, 29th, 23rd, 27th, 13th with Lamar Jackson. That was a tremendous year for Lamar. And then 19th for this past year with the Los Angeles Chargers. And then on the right side is their team's record when they rush for under 100 yards in a game. And let me the quick total that up. That's 12-25, or a 32.4 winning percentage. If they don't run the ball efficiently, which is what I've said for a number of weeks now, you're probably going to lose because Greg Roman doesn't have a system that helps him out with the passes. And by the way, that 3-3 record in 2011 for the 49ers, that were their only losses of the entire season in the regular season. They went, 13-3? Those 3 losses came when they rushed for under 100 yards. So for me, it's a Justin Herbert issue and it's a Greg Roman issue. And I would put a decent amount of the blame. I would do it very close to 50-50, but because Greg Roman is setting up this system and we've seen what Justin Herbert can do, I would put slightly more of the blame on the system, which is Greg Roman's offensive system. Yeah, well, it's maybe Herbert's worst game of his career. Probably. I think. The O-line was a sieve, and it's even more of a factor here about how bad the offense was. The defense did force 3 turnovers. Correct. But the offense never showed up. I think it got really bad when the opening Houston Texans drive, they fumbled it on their own 33. Yeah. And it ended with a 6-play drive starting on the Houston 33, and it ended up with a field goal. 6 plays, 12 yards, nearly 3 minutes on the drive, and you move a grand total of 12 yards.
Yeah.
12 yards.
Yeah, those 3 turnovers, they wound up with 3 points.
And the 3 points came off that opening drive.
Yeah.
They did not score on the other 2
That
turnovers.
was it. Terrible.
There were opportunities that they did not have, and especially in that first half,
you know.
when the game was still in balance.
Yeah, and, I think
Failed
that
opportunities.
Even almost to the end of the first half, it was still a Chargers game, right? They were up 6-0. I think the pivotal play in the game was the 3rd and 16 with 2:24 left in the first half. Stroud fumbled the snap.
Yeah, no.
He rolled right,
Great
threw
play.
a dart to Hutchinson for 34 yards.
He was wide open,
that
too.
That was the play, because it looked like it was going to be that there was a busted play, and he made something out of it. And then a TD pass to Collins for a 7-6 lead going into halftime. That turned the momentum from the Chargers over to the Texans for sure.
Well, I don't think there was much momentum anyway, but obviously once you get that touchdown and finally get the ball rolling offensively, then the momentum's in your favor. Because if you keep forcing turnovers and then putting up a grand total of 3 points, realistically, how much momentum do you have as a team?
Before that play, the Texans had 2 first downs and 2 turnovers.
Right,
So
right.
they
No,
hadn't
it
done
was bad.
anything.
It was bad. It was
They'd
bad.
done nothing. And it looked like on that play they weren't going to do anything either.
Right.
It was Stroud. I mean, Stroud, he had a good game, right? I mean, Stroud's stats, 22 of 33, 212 yards, a TD, and an interception. And given the way he'd been playing,
And
I
it was
mean,
a
we
bad
were calling him
interception, too.
all season. We were saying sophomore slump for this guy.
Right.
He's not doing that well. He came up big in this game.
Right, and by the way, that I'm going to pile on to Greg Roman. What was that interception play call? Roll to your right, cross body, cross field throw to, was it Quinton Johnson, I think? That's an easy pick.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Belichick
say-
slammed his head into when Mac Jones did that. Twice in one game against the
pressure,
Cowboys.
The pressure on Herbert was big. His accuracy was not what it normally is. He threw a ball high, and that wound up being an interception. It went off the hands of the guy, and
I think it was McCarthy,
defender
yeah.
was right behind.
Yeah.
And the guy ran right in for a touchdown, pick 6. So, I was very surprised and very disappointed. It cost me a playoff game.
It cost us a nice win.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that was the first game, too, and we both lost it. I was
didn't start off the
bummed.
weekend very nicely.
I was bummed out.
But I do want to give credit. ESPN's Ben Solak wrote this out, and he broke this down a little bit. Greg Roman in 5 playoff games as the Ravens and Chargers offensive coordinator. 64 points, that's 12.8 points a game. 11 turnovers, that's 2.2 per game. He's not a good offensive coordinator. And that's what I kind of thought. It made sense because Jim Harbaugh does do the ground and pound game. But you don't have a Saquon Barkley. You don't have a Derrick Henry. You don't have a Josh Jacobs. You don't have a Jonathan Taylor. You have J.K. Dobbins, who's good but injury history, and Gus Edwards, who's okay and has an injury history.
They need more offensive talent.
They need firepower. And you let go of Keenan Allen. You let go of Mike Williams, who had decent impacts on their respective teams.
Quentin Johnson.
But Quentin Johnson being your wide receiver 1, that brought up red flags for everybody. Everybody. And then when you draft Joe Alt, it made sense in Jim Harbaugh's system.
They had a good draft, Alt and McConkey in the same draft. That's great.
But you can't have a guy who's 5'9" be your true X factor. You need a guy who's 6'2", 6'3", who can create that separation. And maybe this year you go get it, but
they definitely need to focus on the offense for the draft.
Their defense was number 1 in the NFL. And again, it was they kept taking the ball away from this team, fumble, intercept. Like, they did a fine job in the first half, giving the offense opportunities. But if you're giving up, and by the way, think about how they ended the game. I'd feel terrible if I'm the defense. This was the time of possession that they had in the fourth quarter: 1:30, 1:22, 59 seconds. That was their time of possession. That's not so. By the way, the amount of plays: 5 plays, and 6 plays. You can't do 1.5-minute drives and expect to put up points, unless you're the Rams and you're just dominating everybody. But we could look at you can look at the box score. We could look at the score of this game and say, well, they weren't doing anything really. The Texans did a tremendous job. Yeah. It was an incredibly disappointing game for a team that we look at Justin Herbert and we think he puts up consistently B to B+ level play. This was an F game.
Yeah.
This is a big fat F game. So,
I agree.
again, innocent till
Terrible.
proven guilty. I've said this several times on the show. Justin Herbert now needs to go in, and I think that Greg Roman should be on a very hot seat because those passing numbers, I'm going to bring them up again, does not bode well for Justin Herbert's progression. We're waiting for him to make that jump. Jalen Hurts did it. Josh Allen did it. Mahomes was always great. In his first year starting, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. We see these quarterbacks make decent jumps. But yet Justin Herbert's always remained relatively consistent. We're waiting for him to take that jump where he does leap from being a consistently really good quarterback to now being considered truly in the top 10 and staying in the top 10. He wasn't in my top 10 list, I don't think, at all this season. Because what has he done to make him a top 10 quarterback besides be efficient? He wasn't a dominant player this year.
I thought that he would be close to being my top 10 until this game. I was shocked at how poorly he played. I really he used poor judgment. His accuracy was poor. Not that mobile. He got sacked 4 times. I was very disappointed.
Well, speaking about bad quarterback play, let's jump into it with this game. So the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-14 in the AFC wildcard round, led by Lamar Jackson's 256 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 186 rushing yards and 2 scores. The Baltimore offense dominated with 464 total yards, while Pittsburgh managed a measly 29 rushing yards and had 2 very costly turnovers in this game. The Ravens now head over to Buffalo for a nice rematch of this regular season, this time with the stakes even higher in the divisional round, with the Steelers dropping out of the playoffs in the wild card round once again with their future with questions about their future and extending their playoff drought to 8 seasons. Here's my question to you. Did this game, I picked the Steelers, you picked the Ravens, did this game have to say more about the Pittsburgh Steelers or about the Baltimore Ravens?
Oh, I would say it says more about the Ravens, and my takeaway is that Jackson and Henry had the Steelers chasing shadows all night. And the Baltimore outrushed the Steelers 299 to 29 yards. Jackson hands off to Henry, then slides out to the left as if he still has the ball. Linebackers shift to Jackson's path, leaving the middle open for Henry to run through for a 44-yard TD. That's all night long they were doing this. You could see Jackson would hold the ball, and he and Henry were right beside each other. Then he'd move to the left. The linebackers would go tackle Jackson or head for him, and Henry run around the right side for a big gain. So that's the best example of what I just said, of the quandary Jackson and Henry create for defensive players. If the defense has to figure out who has the ball first, and if enough are out of position, either Raven Star can burn you. And I think that was this game. And so I says more about the Ravens, who played their game. They had the formula that we've been saying wins for them every time. Jackson passing for under 30 times, Henry running for more than 20 times. It works every time. They win every time. On the other hand, the Steelers, they ditched their game plan. They brought in Arthur Smith to have a running game, right? They rushed the ball for they were under 50 yards. They had
under 30 yards.
29 yards they had in total in rushing. That ain't going to win any game. I'm sorry, playoff or otherwise. Russell Wilson, 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 TDs. He had nothing in the first half. They were behind 21-0 at the end of the first half. He got them going a little bit. They scored 14 points in the third quarters, but the Ravens came right back with that 44-yard TD run by Henry to get up to 28 and 14, and that was the end of the game.
I will give a lot of credit to the Baltimore Ravens because that was well-deserved. But for me, this said a lot more about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we need to have difficult conversations, and maybe the conversations that no one wants to have, because normally when we have these types of conversations, it seems degrading of an all-time great, but it doesn't have to be. I think Mike Tomlin should be done. Now the reports are he'll come back in 2025 because he did sign a 3-year extension in the 2024 offseason, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. just like it hasn't gone anywhere for several years. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So unless you want to keep doing this simple dance back and forth of, well, what do we have left? What is Mike Tomlin really known for? Not ever having a losing season. Well, no, that is a phenomenal feat to have. But what makes him great? Is it sick playoff wins? Is it dominating performances where you crush, these all-time greats in the playoffs? Is it you make Super Bowls and you come oh so close, but you sometimes get it, you sometimes don't? Or is it that you actually put your team in harm's way because you're good enough to not have a losing record, but you're nowhere good enough to actually win a playoff game? So you're around the 16 to 19 draft spot. So you're out of contention for a legitimate QB prospect. So you're kind of doing this rinse and repeat slow dance with guys who are middling prospects. And while all the top-tier quarterbacks where you desperately need one, because you've had Kenny Pickett, you've had Mitch Trubisky, you've Kyle Allen, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, an aging Big Ben Roethlisberger, Mason Rudolph. You have all these quarterbacks, but they're not great quarterbacks. So keep doing this dance. Why not? Because it's great to sound like, oh, I've never had a losing season. That's great. But when it matters the most, this is a Hall of Fame coach in the NFL. But his system of, I don't care what the offense looks like because my defense will step up, that's great for maybe a half to two-thirds of the season. But what we saw in the last few games is they fall apart. Absolutely fall apart. TJ Watt, who is still a tremendous player in the NFL, obviously, has done nothing since week 16. He's had a few QB hurries here. He's had, I think, 15 total pressures, but he hasn't had a sack. He missed a bunch of tackles in this game. He couldn't tackle anybody. He kept biting on the read options, which is what you're talking about here. How many missed tackles did he have? He had 2, which led the team in missed tackles. Every single tackle attempt was a missed tackle. 100% missed tackle percentage. He did nothing in this game. He was on the side of the Ravens offensive line. That is the issue. He had a rookie right tackle dominate him in this game, when the right side of the offensive line was the bad side of the Ravens offensive line. So for me, this says way more about the Pittsburgh Steelers because you screwed up the quarterback competition. Justin Fields in his only 6 games that he started, and Russell Wilson's last 6 games of the regular season, I have the numbers here. Justin Fields, you could argue, is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. But he got no playing time. And even if he went out there, he'd be throwing the football or doing a one simple QB sneak here and there. He had 2 total snaps in this game when everybody was hinting at, well, could we see more Justin Fields in this game? Should we see more Justin Fields? He came in on 1 throw, which he got instantly pressured in, and another one where I believe he handed the ball off. That's a guy who was in a quarterback competition up until week 1 of the regular season, and he barely plays anything. And
he played well when he had his chance.
Correct.
Right? First 6 games of the year. First 6 games of the year. And he played 6 games, Russell Wilson, and he was 4-2.
Russell Wilson played 11, but these are just the last 6 games of the regular season.
Last 6 games of the regular season, okay, 2-4. Yeah. So, Pittsburgh season ends with 5 straight losses, 2 to the Ravens. Steelers have lost 6 consecutive playoff games. The Ravens had 10 TD drives of more than 90 yards this season, and they had 3 TD drives in the first half of the game against the Steelers, 95, 85, and 90. And you picked the Steelers, and there's pretty good reason to think that the Steelers could have beat them because they've beaten them pretty consistently in the past couple of years, and they generally beat them because they capitalize on the Ravens' mistakes to beat them. But the Ravens avoided that problem. They didn't take many risks. They had those very long drives, and they ran the ball. And one drive there, I think the longest one, they didn't pass the ball once. And Jackson says, I can just hand the ball off to Henry. He gets 10, 20, maybe 30 yards, and I'm just chilling. When they attack him, and I'm fresh, just making my job a lot easier. We just piggyback off each other, and we'll see what happens when they go to the Bills.
Well, I do want to say, because people might be looking at, Chuck Noll only made the playoffs 4 times in his final 12 seasons, and Bill Cowher was allowed to continue on through, poor seasons and whatnot. There's a slight difference there. Chuck Noll never had more than 3 seasons without a playoff win. Bill Cowher never went more than 2 seasons without a playoff win. And I credit NFL Network for this one. Mike Tomlin is the first Super Bowl winning coach to have a 6-game losing streak in the playoffs. Here's my question to you. Why does he get a pass now? Why would he get a pass now? Because what has he done in recent history? Take the over 500 record out of it, because that clearly doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. What has Mike Tomlin done for his team and for his organization to warrant him staying for 2 more years after this?
I guess it's the winning record in the regular season.
If that's it, then I'm sorry. You got to cut bait. You got to cut.
I don't know
loose.
what else it would be. I mean, he's had tough luck with quarterbacks, right?
And that
that
500 record goes against that, though.
I mean,
because
last year in the playoffs, he was with Mason Rudolph was his quarterback, right? He had Kenny Pickett. I mean, he's had some pretty pedestrian quarterbacks recently, and
that's
Russell
his own
Wilson.
fault,
Russell Wilson is. I think when they sat Justin Fields down, I was very angry about that. We documented that in the show, that there was no reason to sit Justin Fields down. He was playing well.
He was also coming off a huge victory. That prior week,
and they sat him down.
He had over 300 passing yards in that game.
Russell Wilson, they figured they thought was a better passer. And, he passed well in this game, but they had no running game. With Justin Fields out there, you have another threat, a guy who can run the ball. It's more like a Lamar Jackson offense. So I think they made a mistake there. It was a tactical mistake, strategic blunder. And I don't know. We'll see what they do in the offseason. They should hang on to Justin Fields, I think.
Well, I just want to pile on to this. So since Mike Tomlin's last playoff win, Dan Quinn took the Falcons to the Super Bowl, got fired by the Falcons, spent 3 years as the Cowboys DC, got hired by the Commanders, and won a playoff game with the Commanders. And that's with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, that winning record, if you say that's his only thing, here's my problem with that, and I mentioned it earlier. Because he refuses to have
another reason. That's the only reason I can think of.
I completely agree with you. But because he keeps not having a losing season, he is never in a position to draft a top-tier quarterback. Unless we have a repeat and even add a few, because this ended at the 12th overall pick, where you have 6 or 7 quarterbacks that are all first-round talents and all could be great. When is that going to happen again? But no, the Steelers could remain at the 17th, 18th, 19th draft pick, and everyone's like, hey, above 500 record, that's great, 500 above. But it's just going to be this nice dance of, okay, well, the offense, it'll be neglected. We don't have by the way, Najee Harris is gone. George Pickens, by the way, he said that he saw some things change, but doesn't make him optimistic. He said, nah. You've had these wide receivers with great egos. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. You let Deontay Johnson go. George Pickens hasn't been happy all year. He hasn't been happy the past 2 seasons. So if you want to keep that sort of culture in your building, by all means do it. But to have it benefit, and I agree with you, Arthur Smith was there for a mobile quarterback system, was there for a running system.
He was there for a running system.
And Justin Fields.
And it was working. It was working the first 6 games of the season.
It wasn't bad.
4-2.
Right. It wasn't bad at all. Yeah, you had one loss, by the way. If we want to bring up the Indianapolis Colts loss, Joe Flacco had an insane game, which up until that point, besides the following week with the Dallas Cowboys, and here's what's crazy. We take out yesterday's game. That Dallas Cowboys loss, the 20-17 loss, was the most yards that they gave up that season during the regular season. If we take out the wild card game in the regular season, that Cowboys loss, the 20-17 loss, was the most amount of yards that they allowed. And also, if we go back to the Colts game, Joe Flacco had a tremendous game. So it's not that Justin Fields necessarily played poorly. It's that, at least in the in the Cowboys game, the defense didn't show up, and then Joe Flacco just dominated in that game.
Yeah,
and you fault Justin Fields, and even when and Russell Wilson did have a tremendous start against the New York Jets, and then followed it up with the New York Giants. Yeah, that'll make a lot of that'll make a lot of mid quarterbacks really great. And I said this 2 years ago, last year, about Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame resume. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on it, because I think that every single year that we see middling play, it really shows the difference between the Legion of Boom Russell Wilson that went along for the ride in large parts of it, where it came to having Marshawn Lynch and the best defense arguably or near it in NFL history, and then the Russell Wilson now, where the let Russ cook means he's burning food in the kitchen. Because we saw it at the end of the Seahawks tenure, we saw it throughout the tenure with the Denver Broncos, and we saw it, crumbling into a fiery blaze of hell with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Who threw the interception to Malcolm Butler that we have right up here on the on our wall here?
We see it? Yeah, we can see it in the corner right there.
There it is.
Yeah,
Who threw it? Russell Wilson.
So I don't know where Russ signs next year, because reportedly the Pittsburgh Steelers are very frustrated with Russ, and they're looking at to sign Justin Fields before they sign Russ. Does he get picked up as the starter? Because he had a big ego this past offseason, where he said the Giants, by the way, the Giants said that it was going to be Daniel Jones' team. Russ backed out of any sort of deal with the Giants after he was told that. Does he get humbled, Mr. Unlimited, to go on a team to be the backup or to at least fight for the number one job instead of being just given the number one job? To not have the pole position for the starting quarterback job.
You don't think he'll be with the Steelers?
Why would the Steelers bring him back unless you want to do the same damn dance you just did, except this time you'll be coming off of a 6-game, is it 5-game losing streak?
5 games. 5-game losing. 4 in the regular season and the playoff game.
So if you want to bring back Russ, I'm not going to necessarily say that, I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm just going to say, just watch.
I mean, when they started,
will speak for it itself.
When they started on the slide, why didn't they go back to Justin Fields? Particularly the last game of the season, they knew they were going to make the playoffs. It was just a seeding issue. Why not let Justin Fields play that game? I don't know why not.
That last game of the regular season, by the way, was the only game this year where they allowed less than 20 points and lost. The only game. Undefeated when they allowed less than 20 points. But the Bengals game, which, by the way, I don't know if we remember that game. There was a special teams controversy in that game. Remember the blocked punt? Where it was a live ball and then nobody knew and then they muffed it and the Bengals recovered it late in that game. That was that game.
Yeah.
So I think the Steelers are in for a rude awakening, because if they're going to hold on to Mike Tomlin and continually hold on to Mike Tomlin, then this is going to be the same dance. So they'll look perfectly fine through the first half of the year. And then once the defense starts to have human emotions and reactions to being, the key piece of this team, and they get tired, well, then we know what the product looks like. You'll start to fall off, and then when it comes to playoff time, you'll most likely lose to whatever team you face. It's a rinse and repeat process.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how they break out
Rudy's
of it.
got to say,
I think
not
they should.
anymore.
Arthur Smith is going to stay with them, right? He doesn't. He's
who knows?
People are looking for him maybe to go back to being a head coach. I think they really doubled down on that. What they originally said they were going to do. They were going to go with the running. Really go with the run. Try to get Najee Harris back. Re-sign Justin Fields. Draft to support the offensive line and see if you can do it that way. Because the defense tends to play better, I think, of the Steelers when they know probably aren't going to score that many points. They showed it. They had the winning formula. They blew it when they put Russell Wilson in there.
And the fact that there was, is Justin Fields going to play more? Are they going to use Justin Fields as a utility piece? And he handed the ball off, and it wasn't even a throw because he got pressured instantly. But the fact that Justin Fields, at least going into this year, was going to be like, okay, they're going to do a nice utility piece. Justin Fields going to be out there. Even Madden in their trailer had Justin Fields returning kickoffs. He got utilized basically 0% of the time after he got benched for Russ. And this was supposed to be your subtle X factor for your team in key situations. You're going to bring him in when you need a nice little spark. Well, you could have used a spark 6 weeks ago, and it never came.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing. I give my props to Baltimore though. But the reason why I say it's more on Pittsburgh, or this says more about Pittsburgh, is because the Ravens, the past few weeks, you brought up Week 11, their defense has been top tier in the league. Their offense has remained consistent throughout the entire season.
Yeah, the defense has played a lot better.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if this is the Ravens team to beat the Chiefs, because they were always a top tier running team. But they have a piece where, and now, because week 1, we got to remember, they did not get the amount of snaps and the utility of when to use Derrick Henry correct in week 1, because you just got him.
Figured it out.
You just got him. And then instantly, once you started to use him after week 2, then you're like, okay, yeah, we're going to give the ball to a guy who keeps scoring touchdowns and who's got 1,900 yards. So, and especially with the way the Chiefs have been playing as of late, maybe you have an opportunity to finally break that armor and make your first Super Bowl in several years.
299 yards rushing in that game against Pittsburgh's defense, which is supposed to be pretty good.
It was sixth against the run in the regular season.
Well,
Najee Harris is going to be gone after this year. The writing was on the wall. He didn't, get his fifth-year option. Even though he had 1,000
he didn't have that
yards,
great a season, and we got 1,000 yards, but his rushing average per carry was under 4 yards.
It was 4.0, but still, the running attack, it was nothing deadly, strictly using the running backs. With Justin Fields, you had an opportunity to do the RPO or do the read option, stuff like that. But Russell Wilson doesn't move well, doesn't throw a great ball anymore. He had a couple of good throws on okay, decent coverage late in the game when the game was completely out of reach. And then late in the game, what happened? Really nothing. Turnover on downs, punt. Nothing really good. So if I'm the Steelers, I'd be fed up with Russ too. It was a low risk, high reward type of a situation because the Denver Broncos paid him exorbitant amounts of money. But when it comes down to actually now paying him, I don't know who's going to be giving him that deal. And he was hoping for the Baker Mayfield deal. Okay, sure.
I don't think so.
Baker Mayfield's putting up 4,100 yard seasons and being tied for second in passing touchdowns. Russ is doing what?
Not
being
much.
Okay and letting the defense dictate how the game turns out? I'm just going to throw it out there. I think that does wrap up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We got a lot in store for Friday's show.
Doing the Commanders Tampa Bay.
We did not do the Commanders Tampa Bay for this show. I don't have a graphic for it.
If
you want to talk about it, sure,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
say one thing about it. The Commanders thrive in the high pressure moments with head coach Quinn crediting their resilience and trust in one another. I think it's a shame in a way that they're playing the Lions next week because I just don't think they can beat the Lions. But we'll see. Stranger things have happened. They look like a Cinderella team, and that was quite a game on Sunday night. Boy, I really enjoyed that game.
No, it was a tremendous game, and once again, I said this when I picked the Commanders to win, and it just showed once again. So according to Opta stats, in NFL history, there have been 3 instances of a team having 0 turnovers and 0 punts in a game with a rookie starting quarterback, regular season or post. All 3 were the Commanders this year.
Yeah, and
week 2, week 3, and last night.
They trusted
Sunday night.
Jaden Daniels on 4th down plays several times in the game. He wound up with 110 passer rating. 24-35, 268 yards, and 2 TDs. And
he was also their leading rusher, too.
Yeah, they picked up Bobby Wagner. Maybe
game.
a guy a little over the hill, but he led the team in tackles, had a half a sack, and recovered that key fumble that led to the Commanders' touchdown.
It was the only turnover of the game.
Yeah.
And so, it was the costly one because, think about it, I think there was a turnover right before then, I believe. And then instantly you get the ball. Oh, no, it was a turnover on downs, right? It was a turnover on downs on a bad double coverage throw that Jaden Daniels had. And then immediately they get the ball back, and what they do, they flip it around and turn it into a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a game where one turnover can change the outcome of the entire game, which it ultimately did. I think Jaden Daniels, and that's why I thought that I didn't trust Drake May being the Patriots quarterback entering the draft, and I thought that Jaden Daniels was really the only answer for him because I believe that he could do something. Obviously, I didn't predict him go out and have one of the best rookie seasons in NFL history, but I did say I did believe that Jaden Daniels would be a very, very good quarterback in the league. And I think
he's got nerves of steel.
Absolutely, he was cool, calm, and
ice
collected
water
the whole game.
Ice water running in his veins. He's not upset by any of it. They asked him about it after the game. He said, "I just put it in God's hands."
Think about this. They were the 25th best scoring team in the NFL with a 4-13 record. This year, they're 5th in scoring and have a 12-5 record.
Yeah.
And that's behind a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. They got lucky on that doink field goal, right? It hit the crossbar, hit the upright, and it wound up falling in. That guy, that field goal kicker, he's
got OCD. He's got OCD, that's why.
He's adjusting his hair. He's taking his shoes off and retying them. It takes him like 5 minutes to put his helmet on.
Well, he's got OCD. Yeah, those are tics of his OCD. He's been very open about that.
I see.
But I think Terry McLaurin had some tremendous catches in this game.
He was another big player for them.
I think that overall that this is a team, obviously, I think, could this Commanders team upset the Detroit Lions?
It's possible.
And we're going to talk about it on Friday, but I think there's a decent shot that they'll give them at least a run for their money.
Yeah, but the Lions are playing at home. The Lions are on a mission.
They are.
They are on a mission, but they've had a week off. And and that's a double-edged sword for them. They're going to be a little rusty when they first come out.
They're going to start off slow.
But they've rested up now, and maybe some of their huge number of injuries, they'll have some
David
players
Montgomery
coming
was
back.
a full go in practice this week. Well, and that's the big thing. Because there were opportunities to be had for the Commanders against the Baltimore Ravens early in the season, but they couldn't capitalize on them. Can they? Because I agree with you. I think Detroit will be a little rusty in that first quarter, maybe leak it out into the second quarter. Will the Commanders be able to capitalize on maybe a 4th and 3 on the Commanders' 43-yard line that the Lions go for and don't get it?
Yeah.
Can they turn that into a touchdown and say, now the ball's in your court to score on us?
Yeah, I don't think there's any pressure at all on the Commanders. Nobody expected them to be here. Nobody expected them to have a season like they've had. No one expected their Jaden Daniels to have this kind of a season. They're playing with house money. I'd say they go out and go for it on 4th down, play Dan Gamble's game, right? They got nothing to lose. I think the pressure is on the Lions here.
I agree with you because the Lions have expectations to now. They're the Super Bowl favorites. Those are their expectations. You went to the NFC Championship and were up by 17 points at halftime against the 49ers. And then you crumble it away. And then you go into this season, put up your best record in franchise history. You go up in the biggest game of the season, 14-2 of Minnesota Vikings. They're on a winning streak. You lost a few games ago where your defense couldn't stop anything. You're coming off a 49ers win that you allowed Brock Purdy and the 49ers, who were completely reeling at the end of the year. You allowed them to go toe-to-toe with you through large parts of this game, and it was only because Baker Mayfield kept throwing interceptions they were able to come out on top in this game, and you decimate the Minnesota Vikings. And now you're expected, okay, we turned the corner now. Their defense is back on track. You're going out here against a Commanders team that, like you said, they're playing with house money. They're a special team. I think Jaden Daniels is a special quarterback. I'm sure that Jaden Daniels, and people say that he's like Lamar Jackson light. I could see it. Cool, calm, collected guy, incredibly athletic, incredibly mobile, makes some of the big-time plays, especially this young, being on top like he is. He's a special player. He's coming in these high-pressure situations, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles and going toe-to-toe, getting a game-winning touchdown as well. Going against the number 1 overall pick, you throw, a 68-yard Hail Mary pass, which literally, you threw them off a cliff because they won, I think, one game after that?
I know. That was something. The thing that Jaden Daniels misses is Derrick Henry. If he had Derrick Henry, he'd be Lamar Jackson.
Probably. I mean, even then, Brian Robinson didn't have a terrible year. Austin Eckler had a couple key plays, but yeah.
They're not Derrick Henry.
Right now, nobody. In the history of the NFL, how many Jerome Bettis is that size and that great? Was really only tanky running back?
Actually, there's nobody like Derrick Henry. He's huge. His upper body's huge. His lower body, his legs are not. They look skinny, actually. He's a freak of nature.
Yeah. I think he's 250. I want to bring
240.
I want to make sure I get the numbers correct. By the way, he did all of this, 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns at 31 years old. And everybody's like, well, the running back position's kind of, just a pushover position right now. The quarterback and the receiver, that's the key. Well, 31 years old, Derrick Henry's dropping 1,900 yards. He's 247 and 6'2".
Amazing.
Try to go high up on him, and he'll stiff arm you straight to the ground. He'll pummel you to the ground.
Wear the defense down after he runs into you 7 or 8 times, or 10 times, or 20 times.
Well, that's exactly what the Titans did, and that's exactly what the Ravens do.
Yeah.
Just if you want Derrick Henry late in the game, keep going to Lamar Jackson, have him do QB scrambles, and then in the half of the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, it's like the Chris Jones. You don't see Chris Jones a lot in the first half or in the first quarter. But late in the game, late in the fourth quarter, when you need him, he makes a big-time pressure or a big-time sack. That's kind of how Derrick, he kind of goes on cruise control unless we see him like against the Buffalo Bills have an 89-yard touchdown on the first
play of the game.
Right, yeah, but it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts early in the game, and then he just takes a big sword and slices you right open on that. Just kills you at the very end.
I could that game against the Bills, I don't know who to pick. We're going to talk about it on Friday.
We are. And by the way, the point spread moved from 1.5 Bills at home to now 1.5 Ravens on the road.
Wow.
Point spread moved. But with that, I think that does wrap up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We thank you so much for the constant support as always. If you want to help out the show, you can go to www.drsquatch.com/the Harvey Hour and get $10 off a purchase of $30 or more for new customers. We thank you for that support as well. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday to make our divisional round picks. It's going to be an exciting show to watch. But yeah, we'll be here Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Traveling.